In this corner, Jay Garrick, the Flash of the Golden Age. And in this corner, Impulse, the Flash's descendant from the 31st century. One represents the past, one represents the future, but which one is the best Flash family figure? Stick around, this is one versus you don't want to speed through. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Starting with the packaging, and these boxes are virtually the same. Both of them are typical black, white, and blue DC Multiverse window boxes. Names and logos down here. On the side we see this Impulse is from the Flash War, and on this side we see that the Jay Garrick Flash is from the Flash Jay Garrick the Flash Age. Could they literally have not just said the Flash Jay Garrick? That said, if you're looking for Jay Garrick, here's his barcode, and here's a barcode for Impulse. Well, on the back for Impulse we get some very cartoony comic style artwork. It's a well-known fact that goggles make your eyes look 10 times bigger. As for Jay Garrick, he benefits from some beautifully painted Alex Ross art. Just look at that Golden Age smolder. Otherwise, the only thing separating the two is that Impulse has a gold label. Despite this being the face I'm going to see in my nightmares tonight, I don't think there's a distinguishable enough difference between these two boxes. But for packaging, I gotta give this round to old Bedroom Eyes. Moving on to presentation, an Impulse stands at just under 7 inches, and to the top of his bedpan, Jay Garrick stands at 7 1/4. Starting with Impulse, and he's mainly reuse of John Kent, it seems that John has become the go-to for smaller, skinnier characters, which wouldn't be a problem except for all the extraneous, non-John Kent details all these other characters inherit. His unique boots, for example. Here they slap some soft plastic bands over them, but other characters, like Kid Flash, for example, don't even usually get that. On that subject, I do need to address the elephant in the room. In my Kid Flash video, I said this was a new sculpt, but a lot of you corrected me in the comments telling me it was John. I hadn't picked up John yet, and I don't watch other people's reviews, so I just didn't know. In addition to the ankle bands, they also gave Impulse some new wristbands. They are adjustable, so if you wanted to, you could completely hide the wrist ball, but if you do, you will be exposing an indent. Otherwise, Bart has a new diaper, and if you're wondering, nope, it's not the one from Nightwing, and don't worry, I will be getting to him sooner than later. Lastly, Impulse has a really cool new head. I'm so glad they went the translucent route for the goggles, and this hair is pretty epic. There's also some extra painted detail on the skin to give some depth and rosiness. I'm less thrilled with the paint job. Not sure if you can tell on camera, but the paint is really streaky and patchy. There's also a lot of chipping, way more than usual for a McFarlane figure. I acknowledge a costume like this must be challenging to translate into action figure form, but hands down this is one of the sloppiest McFarlane figures I've ever seen. I'd go so far as to say it's even sloppier than the Todd McFarlane Wonder Woman, and we all know how I felt about that one. Jay, on the other hand, is a lot neater and is a 100% new sculpt. From the top, and I do think that they did a good job on the face. Leastways, it reminds me a lot of the artwork. That said, I do feel like his head might be a touch too small and that there should be a bit more head up here. Turning him around though, they did do a very nice job on the wings and also on the hair in the back. There's a bit of added texture to the shirt, but it's not distracting, and the lightning bolt is crisp and vibrant. It's also much better lined up than, say, Booster Gold or Batman of Earth 2. Tiny little blob here, but I'm sure I can scrape that off. Moving on down, he has a bright yellow belt and some bright blue pants. There's also a bit of texturing in those, but for whatever reason it's a lot crisper on the knees. Otherwise, he has his bright red boots and Namor-like ankle wings, with some added paneling on the shoes themselves. Flipping them around, and here are both characters from the back. As much as I really like this head sculpt, and especially the translucent goggles, Impulse suffers from reuse and especially from sloppy paint. For presentation, this round goes to Jay Garrick. Moving on to posability, and the basic points of articulation are the same, so it's going to come down to the range. Both figures' heads are on dumbbell joints. They can look up this high with Jay having the edge, and they can look down this far, which is basically the same. Bart can raise his arm up 90 degrees, and so can Jay. Both figures have rotator cuffs, but admittedly Bart's is better. Both have bicep swivel, and perfectly bent double-jointed elbows. They each have McFarlane wrist balls with a fairly comparable range, maybe Impulse a little bit better, and then move into the middle, and both figures have a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist. Using both, they can arch back this far, with Impulse clearly more so, but hunching forward, they're about equal. Naturally, both get a good amount of tilt and twist. Below the waist, and they have McFarlane-style hips. Jay can kick slightly above 90 degrees and split this wide. Bart, on the other hand, cannot even reach 90 degrees, but he can do a perfect split. both get twisted in the hip, but Impulse clearly has the edge. And thanks to the lankiness of his leg, he also has a slightly deeper bend for his double-jointed knee. That said, both figures have toe articulation and McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, and pivot, while the articulation on Jay is perfectly serviceable. Thanks to his slighter build, the range on Bart is better. For posability, this round goes to Impulse. Moving on to playability, and both figures have trading cards. If you'd like to learn more about Jay Garrick, pause here. And if you want to learn more about Impulse, pause here. Naturally, both of them have figure stands, and they each come with Speed Force lightning effects. I'm not 100% sure which ones go where, but here are Impulse's, and here are Jay's. Near as I can tell, none of them have been reused from other figures, but there are so many of these at this point that it is kind of hard to say. Even so, it does add a bit of value, so I'm really happy McFarlane continues to do this. They also included an extra set of pointy hands for Jay, which, considering the Kid Flash got extra hands, I'm very surprised that they didn't do the same thing for Impulse. But playability is more than just which figure has how many of what. It's also about how well those figures play with others. For a small selection of my Flash figures, and here we have DC Universe Classics. Here's an older DC Direct one that I'm surprised isn't much taller. Jumping ahead to my favorite Flash though, and here we have DC Essentials. And then moving over to McFarlane, and here we have DC Rebirth. Here's a Snyder Cut version of Ezra Miller. And of course here we have Grant Gustin from the CW series. I don't have any other Impulse figures, but I do have the Speed Metal version of Jay Garrick, if you'd like to see a head swap between these two. No. And on the subject of Speed Metal, here we have the blue version of Wally West. For a blue supersonic speedster comparison, and here's Wally West with Quicksilver. But for a real blue supersonic speedster comparison, here's both of them with Sonic the Hedgehog. You have no idea how long I've been waiting to do this gag. For another member of the Flash family, and here we have Kid Flash. Again, both he and Impulse share the same body with John Kent. For some Flash villains, and here we have Reverse Flash, Godspeed, Gorilla Grodd from the Injustice 2 game, and Dark Flash. Since he and Impulse share the same body, here he is again with Jonathan Kent, and here he is with the angry laser eyes version of Hush Superman. Between this Superman and Jay Garrick, it is so nice to see so many bright colors in DC Multiverse. On the flip side though, and here they are with 3 Jokers Batman, I'm really hoping the new Nightfall version scales well, and since I pulled her out anyway to round out the Trinity, here we have the Todd McFarlane designed version of Wonder Woman. For a Golden Age bright red costume with a giant lightning bolt comparison, and here we have Shazam, otherwise known as the original Captain Marvel. For a winged ankle comparison, here's Namor the Submariner. For a relative scale comparison, here's Pete the Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And as always, here they are with Stealth Iron Man. With the exception of maybe Shazam, there just aren't any other Golden Age DC heroes to display Jay Garrick with. On the other hand, thanks to the new Titans wave, there are more younger heroes to mix and match Impulse with. Not that I, showed any of them. In spite of having a couple of fewer accessories for playability, this round goes to Impulse. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. Impulse is a Target exclusive, but both figures retail for $22.99. Even so, Jay Garrick is a new sculpt and has 2 more accessories than Impulse, making him the better value. For price, the final lap goes to Jay Garrick, who wins the race 3-2. Agree? Disagree? Sound off in the comments and tell me your favorite member of the Flash family. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.